Okay. Okay. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. My name is Julie Kim, and I am here from Azusa Pacific University. It's a small private Christian university in Southern California, Los Angeles County, and I'm here to give a presentation about finding the best fit college for you when you apply. And the main topic for today is private versus public U.S. universities. And I think that that's something that everyone that's applying to schools in the U.S. needs to know about, because you'll probably be applying to both types. How do I move the... Okay, so there was supposed to be a welcome video, but technical difficulties are not allowing us to play it, so I'll just skip right through. Okay, and this is actually part of a two-part presentation, so I am going to review part of, because I am an admissions counselor, so I'll review part of what I cover in the first part of this presentation, which is really about getting ahead of the curve and finding out what admissions officers usually look at as the top 5 criteria for applicants. And I really apologize for this slide. It drives me crazy because I never fix it, but everything has a 1 in front of it, but it's supposed to be 1 through 5. Okay, so this is the top 5 criteria that most admissions officers, including those at Azusa Pacific where I work, will look at. We will look at your grades, okay? So we're looking at GPA and class rank, and a lot of universities in America right now are using outside sources to actually convert international GPAs, just because if we do in-house, it gets really confusing because we might get something from Nigeria, you know, and the next day we might get something from a different country. So we do convert your GPA from whatever school that you might be at. And another really important thing that a lot of people don't take into consideration is class rank. Class rank is when you are maybe number 6 out of 100, okay? Or you're number 20 out of 100. So the common application, which most private universities in the US use, will ask you for your class rank. If your school ranks you, you have to put it on there. That's why class rank is very, very important. So when we say grades, we're not just talking about GPA, we are also talking about class rank. And that's another way that universities can kind of gauge how good of a student you are. Okay, so look at the deciles, or if you're in the top 10%, you should aim to be in the top 10%. But at the same time, if you're not in the top 10%, try not to be in the bottom 10%. Okay, and then we look at your standardized test scores. That's including the SAT and the ACT, and then for international students, the TOEFL, and sometimes the IELTS. Okay, so for your standardized test scores, those are also really important because if you're going to a school where classically people have lower standardized test scores and higher GPA, we're going to be able to compare that with students from maybe a school that has a lot of really, really high test scores and then high GPAs as well. So it's a way to also compare and contrast students who don't go to the same schools. The third thing that we look at are the personal statement and the essays, and we do read most of the essays that you send us. Sometimes they're not essays, they're like a paragraph or they're a sentence. Please follow the guidelines. Every single essay prompt that you get for a college essay will tell you exactly what you're supposed to do. You must follow it, or people will notice that you're not following it. So if it's 500 words maximum, stay at 500 words maximum. If they want 250 characters with spaces, stay with that. Okay, and this personal statement is really important because it is actually the place in the essay, one of the only places in your whole entire college application where you can show your true colors. Okay, so everything else, it's like a resume. It's just paper. It's two-dimensional. You can make yourself stand out when someone reads your essay. And again, we do read your essays. They do make a difference. Okay, the fourth area that everyone is going to be looking at are your extracurricular activities, leadership, and volunteerism. Okay, so I always say to students, it's more important to not be everywhere and do everything and be all over the place with your activities, having a huge range, but show your passion in 2 or 3 specific areas, especially if you know what you're going to declare as your major or the major that you're going to apply under. Of course, you don't have to keep the major that you apply under. Then at least one of your main activities should be under that umbrella. Okay, leadership is also a huge thing these days in American universities, just because universities want a dynamic student body where they know that people are going to step up and not just be either off campus partying or just in their room studying. You need to be a well-rounded person. Okay, and lastly, recommendation letters. And this one is an area that I get a lot of Asian American students who tell me, I don't really have a second person to write my recommendation letter. Some people don't even have one. Why? Because classically, Asians are very, very respectful of their teachers, or they, sit in the back, they just study really hard and try not to make a fuss. But all of your teachers are going to remember you and know you if you speak up, if you engage them, and if you don't just look at them as your teacher and educator, but also as just a person or a mentor. Okay, so talk to your teachers, get involved in clubs, talk to your counselor, because when it comes that time that you want to be asking for recommendation letters, you can't have no one to ask, especially for the common application or for all the other private schools or other schools that are asking you for recommendation letters. Okay, so those are the top 5 criteria that everyone should know if you're applying to an American school and probably different schools at different countries. And today we're going to go, that was a lot of information. We're actually going to go on to the main topic, which is finding the right college for you. So this means that you have to know yourself really, really well before you start making that list of colleges. Okay, and that's the first thing that I say on this next slide is know yourself. All right, you can do an online search. You can use the ACT's college search. You can use the College Board college search, which recently got renamed. And it allows you to put in specific criteria. So if you know that you want to go to a school in the suburbs, you know that you don't want more than 2,000 or more than 10,000 undergraduates. You know exactly what types of majors you're looking for. Okay, it doesn't have to be super specific, but you can narrow it down. And the price point, the amount of scholarships, all of those things you can input into these search engines, and that's a good way to start. Okay, you can also go to college fairs, which are usually located not on your campus, but at a different campus, and it's a bunch of college representatives coming together. You can get a lot of information that way. You can also go and talk to the visiting college representatives that are visiting your school. Okay, that's going to be really good if a specific school that you are interested in or even kind of interested in has spent all this time and money to have this person go to your school. Utilize that person. Don't just forget about it. Don't just kind of make a note of it in the announcements and not go. Even if it's a school that you're not that interested in, you should still go because you might actually find something that catches your eye when you go. And also, it's really important to reach out to alumni and read student reviews, especially if they're online. A lot of students will review their schools and be very, very honest. And these students are people that are currently attending or just graduated. Okay, so these are all things that you can start doing. Even when you're in 8th grade, 9th grade, it's never too early to start thinking of your college list. And it's just, these are very practical things that you can do. Okay, so this next slide isn't a bunch of bullet points, but it's a lot of information about what qualities are important to consider when applying to colleges. So you want to look at location. If you have always wanted to go to school in New York City, but you never ever visited before, you better go and visit, and you better make sure that you like that sort of location. Okay? You want to look at the size, you want to look at the type, affiliation, such as religious affiliation, selectivity. And that one is really important because I meet a lot of not just Korean students, but a lot of Asian students who have a little bit of a, they're not really thinking in reality when they're thinking of the selectivity of certain colleges. So you really don't want to front load your list too much, which means you don't want to just apply to the Ivies. You want to have a list that shows variety and shows some that, okay, maybe you'll get in, you know, you'll probably get in, and this one I'm pretty sure I'm going to get into, but I'll still be happy going there. Okay, you want to look at the student body. The majors is very important. If you want to be an engineering major and there is no engineering, then you don't want to apply to that school because it's going to be a huge minus for you, especially because engineering students start, boom, right away, freshman year. Okay, you want to look at sports if you're into sports. Housing. A lot of schools are actually commuter schools in the US, which means that not that many people live on campus. They're going to be coming from home. And you want to look at clubs because just like high school, the clubs and the organizations that you join in college are going to be right there on your resume when you start applying for the real world. Okay, so we're going to skip over some of this stuff because location, that's pretty much self-explanatory, but you do really want to think about size, especially because we're going to be talking about private versus public universities today. The public universities usually tend to be mega huge, and you can get lost in the crowd very easily. Okay, small, less than 2,000 students, that's probably the size of your high school, so you might not want to go to a college that's the size of your high school. So a lot of people, they tend to choose medium, that looks good, sometimes large, it depends on your personality, on what's best for you. Okay, and then we're going to spend some time talking about types and affiliations. Because in the US, there's not just one type of college, there are a lot. There are two-year universities that are usually community colleges. They used to call them junior colleges now, but now it's kind of more PC to call them community colleges. Okay, so those are two-year colleges that are usually state-funded, and they're preparing people to just do their general ed and some of their major courses, and then go on to transfer to a four-year institute. Okay, there are four-year institutions, public in-state, which is what I'm going to be talking a lot about in comparison to private schools. And then there will be private, and then there will be like Christian or specific affiliation. Okay, so there are more types of colleges, but some people wouldn't consider them a college, such as technical school, trade school. But these are the main ones that people think about when applying to straight out of high school. Okay, so this one, selectivity, is a topic that I really want to talk to you guys about, just because highly selective, this ratio should probably be a lot lower, fewer than half of applicants accepted. No, we're talking about like 3%, 6%. Okay, these are the Harvards and Yales of the world. Do not make your whole entire college list highly selective. You might only get into one or none. I have seen that happen before, and it's not pleasant for anyone involved. You can look at selective, okay, traditional, and open, which means that all students are accepted. And you also want to look and check out the student body. Look at the male to female ratio. In America, there are a lot more girls who are applying to colleges. So a lot of schools will have a little bit more of a female population, or some people say that it's easier to get into college because you're a guy. Sometimes that's true, okay? At some schools that's true. At my school, Azusa Pacific, that is, this myth, but you can kind of look at it as reality because we do have so many more females. Okay, you want to look at diversity. Are you going to be happy going to a school that You turn your head every which way and there's another Korean person or another Chinese person, or do you want a little bit less, than that? Things like that are things that you have to think about. And then you want to think about in-state versus out-of-state, but that doesn't really apply to international students. Okay, but if you are here in Korea, but you are a US citizen and your parents are residents of a certain state, you're going to want to think about that as well, because in-state and out-of-state tuition, huge difference. Okay, and then we're going to talk about majors. So when you're trying to build your college list, make sure that you don't just go by reputation. Make sure that you also see that, okay, this school that I'm applying to also has a school within a school that has my major. Okay, there's the College of Letters and Letters and Sciences, there's College of Art, etc. Make sure that your major is there. Don't just go by brand name. Okay, if you're really into sports, you need to make sure that you're NCAA eligible. Okay, that is going to be another huge topic in and of itself, because NCAA, it demands a lot of you. But if you just want to do intramural sports, and sports is a huge part of your life, but you're not going to go, into real college athletics, make sure that there's intramural sports there. That means that you can just join in with a bunch of guys that go to your school, and you're going to make an informal league. If that's important to you, check it out. Housing on campus, dorms versus apartments, or commuter school. Most students don't want to go to a commuter school, which is most of the students are coming from home, just because you don't get that same university experience that you would if you're living on the dorms or in university housing. So make sure that you find that out. Okay, at my school, Azusa Pacific, all of the first years and second years are required to live on campus, but that just makes the atmosphere that much better, and it really makes the school a community. Okay, so find out what the terms are for the school that you're looking at, and you also really need to look at the clubs and opportunities and the programs that are out there. Okay, especially I have a lot of students who want to do international business, econ, things like that. You better check out that school of business, okay, and see what they're doing in the summer, what they're offering for internships, etc. Because you want to look deep into the schools that you're applying to make sure that they really will be a good fit for you. And always remember, it doesn't end with high school. It's just the beginning. And when you go to college, you have to do a lot of other things, such as clubs and programs, and join in, okay? It's not over after high school. Okay. So, we've already touched upon this, but the reach schools are going to be the ones that are most academically challenging to get into, the ones that everyone with a 2400 SAT and, like a 4.675 GPA are applying to, okay? But it's not enough just to have the academics. You need to really, 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 really be someone who is going to enhance that student body, okay? One of my mentors, he explained it to me like this. He said, he's a little older, so he was like, remember when Chelsea Clinton was going to Stanford? It's like, yes. He's like, at that time, she was the first daughter, And so anyone who's going to Stanford who comes in contact with Chelsea Clinton, their lives are going to be enhanced in some way, okay? Or it's going to be changed in some way. So as an admissions counselor, I'm going to be looking at that and I'm going to say, how is Chelsea Clinton's life going to be enhanced by this person's application? So if you think of the application process in that light, it will change the way that you think about the whole entire application process. All right, so always think, okay, so Hermione, Emma Watson, she went to Brown for a little bit, and she was chased out, I think, by everyone who wouldn't leave her alone and just let her be. But, if you go there and you meet her and you have classes with her, that's going to be something. But what about when she has classes with you? Always think about yourself in that way, okay? And then your target schools, these are realistic schools. Schools I'm probably going to get into. I'm looking at their statistics and I'm really seeing that they pretty much match with mine, okay? And then your safety schools are highly likely or certain to get into, but a lot of admissions counselors actually say that safety schools are one of the most important choices that you can make to apply to, because what if you don't get into any of your reach and target schools? Then that safety school that you have is going to be the one that, you know, you might end up having to go to by no choice, by default. But is it a school that you're going to be proud to go to, happy to go to? Is it going to have all of your major stuff that you want, etc.? Okay, so when you're making that list, make sure that you're not just applying anywhere. I have a lot of students who just apply. They just apply to UW because their mom knows what UW is. She's heard it before. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Have you ever been to Seattle? Have you ever been to Washington? Do you know what's going on there? They're like, no, but my mom knows UW. I'm like, how does she know it? She just knows it. That's ridiculous, okay? So you have to know about every single school that you are applying to. Finding the right college, I always encourage people to do a campus visit, even if you're living abroad. If you know for sure that you're going to go to a school or apply to certain schools in the US, your family needs to take you. They don't have to take you, but it'll be a much, much better way to really enhance your decision-making process, because if you don't visit the school, all you have is like this image in your head, this made-up school that you're applying to. But when you actually go there, that image becomes a reality, and you'll know for sure if you want to apply there or not. Okay, I cannot tell you how many times, because I live in the LA area, I have a lot of kids who want to apply to USC. They live very, very close to USC. They have not visited. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? Get in your car, go with your friends, okay? Because you need to do that. And a lot of schools will have you write down the exact date and time that you visited, and they will ask you on the common application or on their app, when did you visit? In what context did you visit? What did you do when you visited? You want to be able to answer that question. Don't leave it blank. But if you're an international student, they will overlook this because it does cost a lot of money to go overseas. But I'm just stressing the importance of a campus visit, because that makes what you think about that school really become what you know about that school. Okay? And then find out everything that you can about the application process and the admissions process, because it's different at every school. The Common App makes it a lot easier, and other applications that share applications like the UC system makes it a lot easier, but still, you're the boss of you. You need to know exactly what that app needs. Okay, so I'm not here to diss mega schools at all, but since I went to one, I did graduate from UCLA, I can speak to what I discovered when I went there. And it was a little bit shocking to me, just because I was just a senior who applied to, UCLA, and I wanted to go there because I wanted to make my mom and dad happy. That was a huge thing. And I also wanted to be able to show off, and be proud of myself and everything that I had done in high school. But when I got there, I found out that I was going to a mega school, and I was often in classes with about 500 people. I never really talked to any of my professors. I did have little sessions, small breakout sessions that I went to that were with TAs or teachers' aides, but still very little professor interaction. And I was in classes where they were so big, no one would ever notice that I wasn't there. So a lot of times I just did not go. And I still got A's and B's because my professor wrote my textbook, and I read the book, or I read the notes, and I went there, I regurgitated everything in the midterm or the final. I still got an A and a B. That's just the way it was for me, and I figured it out, boom, first semester. So I kept doing that, and I was like, oh, what kind of education am I getting? But, not going to school actually helped me because I was working so much during that time. But still, it really, really made me think. I was probably 19 or 20 at the time. wow, is this the education that I really, really want? Which is not something that people think before they go to college, okay? So, and a lot of times people will have differing values. Your professors might be very, very liberal and be very vocal about that, and there's nothing that you can say or do in that class to kind of defend your own, ethics and things like that. And then a lot of times at mega schools, which are often public and state schools, but they could also be private, there's a research or graduate level focus, which means that, yes, they are taking care of their undergrads, but a lot of that undergraduate tuition will go, boom, into the professor's research or into the grad students or the PhD level students, and you're basically fodder for all of that research that they're doing. That's just how it's going to be. That's why there's 500 people per class, okay? And then there's going to be red tape. When you're a freshman, you cannot just sign in on the day of signing up for classes. You have to be in line, okay? The seniors are going to get priority, juniors next, sophomores next, and it's going to be you, okay? So there are a lot of things about this red tape. I call it red tape because you just have to do backward bends and flips to get certain classes or to access services at these mega schools, just because not because they don't want to serve you, but because there's not enough staff to serve everyone on that one-to-one basis. And then a lot of times there won't be the right fit for personality or career goals. If someone wants to do hotel restaurant management, for example, for the rest of their lives, and they want to go to a UC or another school that doesn't have that strand, they only have econ, then I'm like, why are you applying to none of the schools that have hotel restaurant management? Because they're not good enough brand name schools. But you're not going to get the practical education that you're looking for. And you're not going to get the expert professors who have actually been hotel or restaurant managers. And the answer is always the same. I'm just gonna, go to this brand name school, do the econ, and then later I'll get an internship or something at a hotel or a restaurant. I'm like, okay, you can do that, or you can actually apply and just have it be amongst your choices. It's just an application to go to a school that actually has hotel or restaurant management. So that makes sense, in an outside point of view. But when you're actually applying, sometimes that pressure to just go to the best numerically ranked school that you can get in the way of what you really, really want to do for the rest of your life. Okay, and now I'm going to talk about small to mid-sized private universities. And I'm not just talking about it because in a positive light because I work for one right now, but because I could really see a difference, okay? I went to the mega school for undergrad, and I went to the mid-sized private university for grad school. Huge difference, okay? It can have more of an undergraduate focus, so that means that my money, the grad school money, was going into the undergraduate programs, which I think is really, really good, okay, for college. And then the university usually has stronger traditions, school pride, and alumni networks. When I meet anyone from my school, I don't care because there's so many alumni that you meet from that school. But the smaller schools, when you have an alumni that you meet, or I don't know if you guys know about LinkedIn, but if you join in that LinkedIn network, then it's going to mean something for your career. Okay, and then this one is huge. Student to professor ratio is usually much lower. At Azusa Pacific, our average student ratio is like 19:1, which is crazy. It's very, very low, and that means that your professor, number one, this might not be appealing to some of you, is going to know that you're not in class, okay, on those days. He's going to know you by name. He's going to invite you over, to have dinner. It's not always the case at every university, but it does happen a lot. And he might have your number in his cell phone, okay? But other than that, when you ask him for a recommendation for grad school, him or her, they're going to know exactly who you are. They're going to be able to say, hey, in that one class, this is what John said. or in this project, this is what John discovered or researched. And he's going to be able to go into specifics just from his mind, not from anything that you're giving him, like your resume, okay? So that's a huge thing, because in America, more and more so, it's not going to be about college, being a college graduate. It's going to be, let me go to grad school or let me get licensed in a specific field. So you always want to be thinking beyond college, and your professors are going to be a huge part of that, because they know people. Trust me, they know people, and they're going to be writing, okay, not just your recommendation letters for grad school, but this is just how the world works. It's all about networking. If they know another professor that's over at that grad school that you want to go to, they're going to write to them. I promise you. But they're not going to write to them if you were 1 in 500. They're going to write to them if you're 1 in 19. That's just very practical. Okay? And they're usually much more service-oriented just because they can be. Okay? Lower faculty to staff ratio, or lower faculty to student ratio, lower staff to student ratio. At my university, we have an open door policy, which means that if we're not in an important meeting, our door is open. That means that any student can come in and ask us anything, and we have to drop what we're doing and sit down and talk to them and serve them, because we're staff. That's what we're there for. We're there for the kids, or I always call them kids, but they're students. Okay? And you're gonna want service when it comes to in-person versus online advising, sign-ups, okay? In this day and age with technology, a lot of people want to do things just online. A lot of schools want to just do things online, but getting that person-to-person interaction is still very, very, very important, especially at university. Okay, so I am going to talk about why consider a Christian school, just because Azusa Pacific is a Christian university. Okay, we do not force all of our students to be Christian. It's not a requirement. But as I talked about before, it's a private mid-sized school, so service and attention, community and unity, usually medium to small size. You're not going to find a lot of mega Christian schools. A great product for the cost. And when I'm talking about product for the cost, it's what kind of education, what kind of services do you get for the tuition, for the housing, for all that. Okay? Relationships, especially with professors and mentors. And then if you do happen to be Christian, there's going to be faith and academic integration that you can really, really, benefit from. Okay, so we're starting to get towards the end, and I'm just going to talk about just putting the pieces together of what I've discussed today. So choose to apply based on how you see yourself fitting in at a school, okay, or how that school fits what you want. I have seen students, and I've helped students apply to colleges that it was their dream school, they got there, they hated it, they came back to California, or they came back to their hometown. They had to start all over again because they didn't do the visit, or they didn't think about the things that I just talked about. And then they feel horrible. Their parents feel horrible, they feel horrible, they feel like they failed. But I just tell them, you know what, it's not that you failed, it's just you didn't do all of the research that you should have done before you actually went to your dream school. It was just a dream, it wasn't what you wanted for your reality. So you want to avoid that. Okay, complete your application. There are so many students who do not complete their application because they haven't read all of the requirements. It's not just filling out that form, especially if you're an international student. You have to send your parents' bank statement. You have to send your parents' affidavit of financial support, which basically says that they're going to support you for 4 years. You have to send in a copy of your passport. You have to send in all these things after you send in the application. And you are only going to know what to send in if you have researched it and if you have a checklist and you know exactly what's due. A lot of you guys are going to be hiring someone to do that for you, but you should still be on top of it, because who is applying to college? You're the one that's applying to college. You need to know. Okay, if you're 18, 17, it's ridiculous if you don't know the requirements for the colleges, every single one that you're applying to. Yes, it is very, very complicated. There's different requirements for each one. But if you break it down and you go step by step, it's not that difficult, and you shouldn't have any applications that you started but didn't finish. Okay, unless you really, really know, okay, I don't want to go here. You start something, you finish it. Okay, and look at the value and the bottom line. You want to look at the whole entire experience. The classroom, the service, the vibe. I mean, when I talk about vibe, I'm talking about atmosphere, and that's something that you can only feel if you visit. Class availability. Some people cannot graduate on time. Why? Because their major is impacted at that school, and because there's not enough classes for you to graduate in 4 years. So you're going to be stuck there for 6 years. Is that going to fit your budget? Do you want to take out loans for 6 years? Got to find out that stuff ahead of time before you're at that school, and you're just kind of like, oh no, what am I going to do? Okay, and you really, really want to focus on preparation for grad school or job placement or both, because college is not just a time for fun. You're going to have fun no matter where you go. It's going to be so fun, but there's going to be a huge difference between the people who are having that fun that you're having and also thinking about grad school and job placement, or, you know, just being in school. And a lot of Asian kids tend to let go after they're in college because they've spent so much time, energy, money just trying to get in. Once they get in, they're just like, okay, and they kind of party it up. That is not what you're supposed to do. Anyway, I sound like a mom right now, but I was just seeing so many kids and help so many kids and talk to so many students about these things that it's very important for me to say it, you know, so that you just, at least somebody has told you. Okay, and don't let sticker price or rankings stop you from applying. If you really, really are interested in the school, but it's not ranked highly in the newest US News and World Report, that is not, you know, the end-all be-all of all college rankings. So it's going to be, for some of you, it's going to be a battle. You want to apply to this school, but your parents have never heard of it before. You've got to, you know, do something about that, okay? So again, don't let sticker price, which means the tuition, or the rankings, which means whatever some book says that that school is ranked, stop you from applying to school that you would be happy with, okay? And that's going to help you get to the next level, because that's a huge chunk of what college is all about. Okay, so that's basically the end. I am going to take questions. I do speak a little tiny bit of Korean, so if you're very comfortable with Korean, I will try my best to answer your question. This is all of my information, which I freely and happily give. That's my email, jkim@apu.edu. You can email me about Azusa Pacific, or you can email me about other questions, okay? Anything related to applying to colleges, not about, you know, where I live or creepy things like that, okay? My Cat Talk ID, I have, you know, students Cat Talk me all the time. Sometimes they're just interested in Azusa Pacific. Sometimes, I don't know, they just have found my Cat Talk ID somehow, and they just ask me a random general question about college applications that I do not mind. It's just that there is a time difference, so it might take me a while to get back to you because I might be sleeping. Okay, and my LA office, I'm not in LA right now, I'm in Seoul, which is my hometown. It's going to be +1, that's USA, and then 626-815-2033. And again, my name is Julie Kim. I have my master's in educational counseling. I have my English teaching credential for high school in California, as well as my high school counselor credential. And I'm also an international admissions counselor at Azusa Pacific University. And yeah, I just love helping high school students and college students just kind of figure out their lives, which is ironic because mine's not, you know, the most figured out in the world, but that's just what I love doing. So that's why I'm here at Fulbright Korea, and that's a big part of why I gave this presentation. And if there are any questions, yes.
Yeah, I do have several questions. Is that okay?
Yes.
Am I recorded or something?
I'll repeat your question.
Yeah,
So
but,
then,
am I recorded?
I,
Questions are?
yeah.
Okay. Can you answer questions not just related to your university, but just general information?
Yeah.
Because I do have questions regarding the requirement courses.
Okay.
Science, some schools seem to require 3 courses of science, well, and others require 2.
Mhm.
So, do they have any specific schools to require like 3 subjects like this? In science, for example, physics, biology, and what else?
Chemistry.
Chemistry.
Right.
I have a 10-year-old, 10th grader,
Mm-hmm.
and he doesn't want to take 3 courses of science.
Okay.
He wants to take only 2.
Okay. Okay, the question was, for science, is there a specific requirement for, the number of courses that you're going to take in high school, whether it's 2 or 3? That's going to depend on every school, but the big thing is what major is he going to apply under? We have people that apply under biology who got C's and D's in biology and who didn't take anything beyond chemistry. So we're going to reject them like really quickly because why are you applying under biology? It doesn't make any sense. But, that's an extreme example. Most schools want to see 4 years. So biology, chemistry, even AP environmental science, and then maybe another AP in senior year. Very, very important to take. You don't have to take the 4 years if you're going to be on the liberal arts side, or on the social sciences or humanities side. But most colleges will want to see that you're doing 4 years.
For example, he wants to be an architect,
Mm-hmm.
and he likes to take the physics and chemistry, and
Right.
he's good at math.
Right.
But he's not interested in biology at all. So if a university requires 3 subjects, of course it doesn't work in 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Will it matter? Because if he doesn't take biology, doesn't take an AP biology,
Right.
he will have a lot of AP physics.
Mm-hmm.
He have a lot of physics. So will it count or?
Okay, the question was very specific to a certain student who doesn't want to take biology but really enjoys physics, and he's probably going to take regular physics and AP physics. Again, you're going to have to look into, you can call admissions offices all the time. Someone will get back to you. If they're a decent admissions office, you can ask them specifically. Whatever schools that he's applying to, call. But the general answer would be, it's very rare for a student not to take biology in America. Yeah. So, if that's the case with his specific school, if not a lot of students take biology, ask the counselor to note that in the letter of recommendation.
No, but it doesn't matter what his friends are just taking. He is not
Right.
interested in biology.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about if the counselor knows that, okay, at this school, hardly anybody takes biology, then that's not going to be a red flag. But if at that school, everyone starts with biology, and goes through a certain course, then the counselor is going to be like, what? How come this kid didn't take biology? Because we know about the school that that student is from. Does that make sense? Yeah. But if he doesn't have biology on there and he wants to do architecture, it's not going to be, the end of the world. But again, you really, really, really want to ask specifically to the schools that he's applying to right now. Right, it can, but 10th grade is not too early to ask for the schools that you're thinking about.
Question is, you talked about class rank, and class rank is important.
Right.
But what if highly prestigious high school, for example, really gifted?
Mhm.
My son is in a kind of elementary school, and they have these very selected students. Some of them are very good at biology, some of them are very good at other subjects. But in general, there are a lot of kinds of gifted. So
Right.
I'm very much worried about class rank. maybe
Okay.
he can get some good, decent GPA, but I'm not sure about his rank.
Mm-hmm.
In a very small school, like 50 or 60 students for US college.
Okay, so the question was, what if the student is attending a very, very, very elite school with tons and tons of very, gifted students, and he does have a good GPA, but the ranking is not as high as it could be, like, maybe he's in 30th percentile, but he still has a 4.23. That happens in the US as well. Usually, we will look at the high school profile, which your son's school probably has, and we will just look and see what the GPA, range is, so that we know, and that will usually diffuse things. Okay, but again, we also look at if GPA and class rank match with standardized test scores. So that's going to be something that's going to set him apart.
The school mostly normally sends 5 to 10 students to Ivy Leagues.
Okay, yeah. So, it's not just the class rank that we're looking at, but we're looking at the AP tests, we're looking at the SAT subject tests, so all of that academic, the top 2, yes, we're really going to look at that. Yeah, and usually if it's one of those elite schools, then the colleges will know. Yeah.
Some pretty high school says, but
Yes.
I'm still worried very much. And my third question is, what is personal statement? Is it different from resume or something? Or is it really different from essay?
Right. The question was, what is the personal statement? Is it very, very different from the resume and or an essay? The personal statement is basically an essay, but it's a vehicle for someone to show who they really are, what they really care about. So I always tell students, show me where you've been, who you are right now, and who you hope to be, hopefully in the same personal statement, but on one topic. It can be very narrow, but you have to show what you have learned from that experience. Okay, it doesn't have to have a title. Most personal statements do not have a title.
Every school requires personal statement?
For example, on the Common Application, which most private universities use, the Common Application will have a main essay, okay, and students can choose from 5 different essay topics, and then they'll have a short answer for the extracurricular activities. So extracurricular, pick, your secondary or just something that's just an activity, but for the main essay, you really want to go deep, which is very difficult for high school students to do because they're not used to writing essays about themselves, and they're not used to just kind of exposing their thoughts, their deepest thoughts, their feelings. But that's really what the personal statement is going to be. It's going to be very personal about themselves, what they've experienced, what they know.
So that personal statement is not kind of form or something, that's what the students should aim for.
Right.
They should make personal statement. It's not any.
It's not a form, it's not a title. Yeah. But they will have a prompt that the student has to answer.
Should be personal statement.
Yes. And then they'll probably have a word limit because they don't want to read pages and pages and pages. Yeah. So we do notice if someone is not answering the prompt because you want to stay on topic. So students really have to understand the prompt and then start brainstorming and writing, because if we ask you a question, but you have a great essay, but it's about something that's completely not answering the question, then it's very noticeable. Yeah.
And when my son has a visit, a trip to the universities he is going to in May, what information does he have to gather? What information he should not miss? You recommend a couple of information he should gather during
Right.
the visit.
Okay. The question was, if you go on a campus tour or a visit, what are the main things that you should ask or not miss? So I would say, just walking onto the campus is huge for a lot of Asian students, but contact the school ahead of time. And a lot of schools will do certain accommodations. They can do an overnight visit where the student is staying in a dorm. They can do a classroom visit where a student attends a lecture. Okay, so if he knows what major he wants to do, or if he, if he wants to get into physics research, a very specific type of physics research at a certain school, find out about it, go and talk to, maybe the professor won't be available, but maybe someone who's researching under the professor will be, so that he can get an idea of, how easy it is to actually work under that professor, and also what type of work he'll be doing.
There will be in a group, all the school students in the group.
Right, so you want to,
Have some kind of session, probably not a professor, but a staff will come to answer some questions.
Okay.
What kind of information you should get from those people in the school?
If you're going in a huge group, they're not going to have time to answer your specific questions. So you want to email admissions counselors. You can usually find out who would be his admissions counselor if he were to apply. So sometimes it's by region, sometimes it's like A through Z, so find out who that person is, email that person, or start emailing the department that he's interested in.
Universities have a specialized admissions officer only for international students, or
Yeah,
you are?
yes. For example, I work at the International Center. I'm in international enrollment, so I do not see domestic students. I talk to international students only.
How many of you are?
Sorry, we have another question.
Oh, from online.
The question is, if they're on the reverse side of her question about high school, if he's going to a university that Americans might be unfamiliar with, but his ranking is very good, so would that be an issue?
We have ways to research your university or high school. So, just because your school isn't well known doesn't mean that we're not going to take time out to find out about it. And we also, if you have a really great ranking, it's probably not going to raise enough red flags for us to actually call your counselor. But a lot of times I'll just call a counselor and I'll say, hey, tell me more about this kid. We're really interested. Or sometimes we call because there's something suspicious. But admissions counselors, once they get that information from a recommender or a counselor, it's basically fair game to contact that person. And we also, we utilize Google a lot, and we will Google the school. Yeah.
Are admissions counselors different from admissions officers?
No, basically the same name for, yeah.
And the next question, so many questions.
Okay.
Multiple roles. The competition ratio is so high nowadays, right?
Mhm.
It's getting higher and higher.
Right.
Do you think it will be stabilized sooner or later, or I heard that it will be just max,
Mhm.
will not go up,
Right.
Will it die down?
Okay, the question is, in recent years, competition to get into college has become very fierce. Do we think that it's going to get, a little bit easier? I don't know if easier is the right word, but it's not part of my job to read research, but I do it anyhow because I'm a nerd. But I have read that the number of high school graduates is going down in America, at least. So there's going to be less people applying. I'm not sure how that's going to affect, the overall ratio. The hardest schools to get into are always going to be the hardest schools to get into. There are certain schools that 90,000 people are applying to, So that's a hard question to answer specifically, but generally, I believe that it's not going to be at this same range because there's so many seniors that have been graduating and applying at the same time for the past few years. But just population-wise, it's going down a little bit. There's not going to be as many high school graduates as there were before, right?
The last question is maybe the last one about your school. Do you have architecture program in school?
I don't think that we have a specific architecture program. We do have design,
Design.
right? Art and design. But if you are looking at architecture schools, then you really want your son to start developing a portfolio.
Yeah.
Very important, right? Yeah.
Do you offer a scholarship for international students?
Yes, we do offer scholarships for international students, and they are the same as the scholarships for any domestic freshman. They're basically based on GPA and SAT. If an international student does not have an SAT score, they can still earn a merit scholarship of up to $7,000 per year, and that's every single year. Okay, so if you have over 3.0, it's 6,000. If you have over 3.5, it's 7,000. That's every year, providing you have at least a 2.8 grade point average every semester. If you add SAT into the mix, and it's pretty good, then we have other levels of scholarships, which include the $9,000 scholarship and the $10,000 scholarship. Those are very important because those are freshman scholarships. We only give them out to freshmen. And once they get that scholarship, as long as they have over 2.8, it's there every year. So say I had a really great GPA and SAT, I applied to APU, I got the $10,000 annual scholarship, I'm going to get that scholarship every single year as long as my GPA doesn't dip down. And there are other scholarships that they can apply for.
Where is it located?
It is in Los Angeles County.
Is there a question from the students and grad student?
Okay.
When it comes to science, I guess is it general or is it common for a grad student applicant to contact personally some professors in labs that he wants to enter?
Yes. Yes, that is very, very, very common. That's what you should do and that you want to do, because grad admissions is very different from undergrad admissions. Grad admissions, the professors and the departments are going to be much more highly involved in that process. Okay, and you just want to contact those professors as soon as possible, and you want to know exactly what type of research you want to do and what you're really, really interested in before you actually go into that application process.
That's it for me.
For Christian schools,
Mm-hmm.
like I went to this Christian school and they said the same thing, that you don't really need to be Christian
Right.
to be in the school, but they had these activities that you needed to be in.
Right.
I don't know. What they call
Like
it.
chapel or worship.
Yeah.
Right.
Session or something.
Right.
Is that the same for colleges too?
I don't know about most Christian schools. I can only speak for mine. But we do require chapel attendance 3 times a week. But we don't require students to be Christian to come to the university, because that's not real life, and we can't ban people because they are not Christian. But if they do apply, they do sign a paper that says, I understand that I'm going to be going to chapel and attending some theology courses. Yeah.
Also, they require the courses you need to take.
Yes. So you do have to take Bible courses.
So there's actually people with other religions that go to that school.
Yes. Yeah.
Does that cause a problem?
I don't know if it causes problems, but it makes for very important dialogue. And I actually really believe in not forcing everybody that applies to actually be Christian, because that's just not that's not I don't know how to say it. That's not a reflection of the real world, Yeah, but I mean, non-Christians that do apply, they just have to know it's going to be around them, Yeah.
And when you're talking about volunteer work, is there is some volunteer work better than others, or?
Okay. The question is some volunteer work better than others? I would say it's not about what you're doing, but about your consistency. If you start something in 9th grade, I'm very sorry to say, but you should continue it unless you absolutely hate it. Do not start a bunch of volunteer activities and then just drop out, because that's a very common pattern. But you want to really, really show your dedication to one or two causes, and do things that you really enjoy doing. Don't just do things to beef up your resume, because you don't want to, be miserable in this one volunteer thing and not be able to quit just because you started. But really think about, and that's, again, goes with knowing yourself. If you, I have so many students who are helping people with like Asperger's syndrome. Okay, so there's a thing called Best Buddies in America. I don't know if Korea has it too, but some people can handle it, some people can't. So we'll have a lot of people drop out, but we'll have a lot of people who continue on with it for 3 years, 4 years. That's really the best case scenario. So sometimes I tell people, hey, you should, if you're in Korea, maybe you want to volunteer at an institute that's internationally recognized, like Habitat for Humanity or something like that. But that's not a must. It's mostly consistency and your passion for what you're doing.
If my child goes out to an elementary school nearby and teach math every week for 3 years, would that be impressive?
The question is, if someone tutors math at an elementary school for 3 years, is that very, very impressive? Not really. I mean, just to be blunt, because so many kids do that. That's one of the easiest things to do. You just go back to your old junior high teacher and say, hey, can I tutor math every Thursday? It's very common. So you want to differentiate. He can differentiate himself by making his own tutoring club, or doing something else with math. For example, there are like AMC 8 tests, those competitions. He can tutor people in that.
Tutor the AMC?
Yeah, but of course he has to be doing it himself too, or else he's not going to know enough about it. But that's just an example. So try to do things that are not so common. But of course, if he's been doing it for a long time, then yes, it's going to count for something. But it's not going to make him a stellar standout.
He himself takes the AMC.
Right.
This is very good at
Right.
But does he have to teach us?
No, that was just an example. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But I mean, there's enrichment math that he can, introduce to those elementary students that they've never seen before. It's not just, yeah. Are there any other questions?
When you're talking about leadership,
yes.
How do you actually show that you're leading something? Like, do you have to be in a specific role?
Usually, how I've been talking about really getting deep into a few areas. So usually if you're in it from freshman to senior, you're going to become some kind of officer, but leadership is also about starting your own organization or starting your own grassroots efforts. And that doesn't have to be huge. It can be you and your friend going to do X every single week, and you guys are the co-presidents, But that has to be something that that work can be shown. It can't just be on a piece of paper, So that's the leadership that I'm talking about. You don't have to become the president of your Key Club, because there's 50 million presidents of Key Club everywhere. You have to show, hey, I'm interested in this cause. I'm going to create my own thing, and I'm going to just help out, things like that. So leadership isn't just about being the president and the vice president. It's about actually committing, creating, doing, etc.
But online courses with universities?
Online courses with universities is good. But that can't be the only thing that's kind of extracurricular that's on there.
Just showing that he is that much interested in that in any way.
Right.
When you're talking about diversity in schools, so is there any problems related to racism, or it's just like the ratio between
Racism where? In certain schools? I'm not talking, I wasn't referring to racism. I was more speaking about, you know, if you know that you have to go to a school where there are other Koreans or it'll drive you insane, I mean, you should find that out. If you know that you don't want to go to a school where there are a lot of Koreans, you know, maybe you shouldn't apply to one that has so many. That's just, you know, but I can't really speak about racism at different schools just because I don't work at those different schools, but I'm mostly talking about just, you know, the class makeup, you know.
Probably the online.
Okay. Do you want to? Oh.
So we're going to end the online portion of this presentation. If you have any other questions, please contact Julie Kim, or you can also contact us at usec@fulbright.or.kr or at our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/EducationUSA Korea. Thank you very much for joining us.